Good afternoon. My name is Ian Fraser. I am the CEO, Vice President of Exploration of Fathom Nickel Inc. We are a Calgary, Alberta-based company exploring for nickel in the wonderful province of Saskatchewan. We formed the company in 2015. We were private up until we launched an IPO in May of 2021. And we've been successfully allocating cash to both projects in Saskatchewan.
Fantastic. Ian, lovely to meet you. Thank you very much for joining us. We've had a couple of guys doing this, and entirely my fault for us not doing this sooner. But we will be talking to you more regularly, so that's good news. Can you give us a bit of background on you? Where have you been? What have you done?
I'm an exploration geologist by trade. I've been doing this, 35 plus years. Fell in love with the travel and just the thrill of the hunt. Was working for Inco originally, which is kind of interesting now, having come back and searched for a variety of commodities and having started with Inco, and here I am completely focused on nickel. I've had a couple of successes. Was able to get a small gold mine into production in northern Saskatchewan, and something I'm quite proud of is working with and mentoring some young, fresh out of school geologists in Colombia. And there we were working on a project just northeast of Medellin, and we put the thing into production. So they're all gainfully employed at this gold mine in Colombia. And so that was very, very rewarding for me personally.
Oh, fantastic. Fantastic. Well, it's a rarity. I think most people struggle to make a discovery and get into production. So that's good news. You've got a couple of assets here with Alberta Lake and obviously Gochager Lake. Can you sort of outline what's the big idea? What's the plan here? What are you trying to do?
Well, it's a really good question, and we launched the IPO, and we were focused on Albert Lake, and Albert Lake was formerly known as the Rottenstone project, and here there's this fascinating historic deposit of very, very high grade nickel, 3% nickel, 2% copper, and up to 10 grams platinum group elements. And so that was our focus when we launched the IPO. And then in the fall of 2022, we picked up our second asset, which is the Gochager Lake project. And in just over a year's worth of drilling there, 5,000 meters, 16 holes, we feel like we're on a quicker path to a resource at Gochager Lake than at Albert Lake presently. So we're I think we're coming to the realization and the decision we'll focus the next 12 months will be at the Gochager Lake project.
Right. Okay. And obviously to do that, you're going to need capital. So it talks about in terms of the drilling done to date in terms of meters or dollars, however you're going to quantify it, and what you think you're going to be able to do going forward.
Well, what we've, we drilled our very first hole last year. We set the bar rather high for ourselves. We intersected 58 meters of 1.5% nickel. And then we had a follow-up program in the fall of 2023. And that was designed around understanding the geometry of this high-grade mineralization that we intersected. I think we were very, very successful in doing that. And in the program that we just completed here, March and April of 2024, we started drilling this thing in a systematic approach with a common azimuth, and we need to continue doing so. We had news out last week. I think the news is very, very good. We have a really good understanding of this historic deposit, which was originally drilled 1966 to 1967. And I'd like to think if we have the opportunity to drill 10,000 to 15,000 meters, that's obviously going to require capital. If we can get 10 to 15,000 meters drilled here in the next 12 months, I think we're going to have a pretty good picture in front of us.
Right. So obviously, I think the nickel market last 18 months up until about 2 months ago, it's been beaten up pretty bad. Most nickel companies sort of struggled. I think now we're sort of seeing a bounce over like 20,000 a couple of weeks ago and sort of 19,000 now, a little bit of a reset like most metals in this space. Do you feel that's going to be I guess it's going to be a more compelling story in an environment like that, and the ability to raise capital is going to be easier for you to do what you want to do.
Yeah, I'm optimistic that there's going to be some helpful wind, if you will, behind an ever improving nickel market. I mean, it did. It really fell off, and it fell off hard last year. It has bounced back. Looking back on it, and I think there's even been a little bit of a retraction in Australia. Maybe the overreaction, that the doom and gloom. But historically, nickel, like a lot of commodities, they tend to be quite cyclic. But I think the long term outlook, it's we I think we got very, very focused on battery metals over the last couple of years, and I think there's a bigger picture there. There's just recently at a couple of conferences in New York, and I think the Americans are, they're recognizing this security around supply, and I think the bigger picture here is locking down good deposits of magmatic nickel sulfides in North America, because we certainly are going to have a customer just south of the 49th. So I think a little, forward thinking, I think everything's going to be just fine. And it's up to us to get one, if not both of these projects, at that stage where they're ready. They're ready for somebody to come in and potentially get them out of the ground.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I think that, but the LME in Shanghai inventory is dropping a little bit lower, and whatever. Here's an interesting one for you. You had Philippines exporting into Indonesia to kind of feed their mills. So apparently the country that was going to swamp us and flood us with nickel is importing ore, which was fascinating. Always fascinating. Right, Saskatchewan, doing business there. We've seen a few other players like Giga out on the sticks finding nickel, lower grade sulfide type nickel. You've got this high grade thing going on, exceptionally high grade. What do you think you've got to do? Is it a question of like demonstrating scale and piecing together a package which says, like, here's my economically mineable asset? Is that what you need to do? What do you feel you need to deliver?
Exactly that. And we're I mentioned both projects. This historic Rottenstone deposit. It was known since 1929. The term Rottenstone is originated from the hill of Rottenstone. So here was this Gossan that was 50 meters in diameter, rose 10 meters above what is now Rottenstone Lake. And they hauled out 26,000 tons and shipped it all the way to Inco's facility in Coppercliff for final refinement, and just absolutely spectacular grades. But knowing what we know now, that was not there, and it is not there in isolation. We have found another area of ultramafic mineralized rock that has a strike of 300 meters, albeit lower grade than Rottenstone. So we've proven that there's a large magmatic nickel system at the Albert Lake project. And at Gochager, I find this interesting too, a Calgary-based oil company, Scurry Rainbow Oil, drilling vertical holes into a deposit that we know now has vertical control. The host gabbro that is hosted into a norite, the contacts are very, very vertical. We seem to have higher grade mineralization building up on the footwall side of this steeply oriented contact. So if you're drilling vertical holes, you're going to miss all the goodies. So I think we've demonstrated now that, we're on to this. We have this figured out. We have upwards of 700 meters of strike to play with. We have extended the historic deposit. It was 4 million tons at a grade of 0.3. We have pushed that down a minimum of another 100 meters to depth. And with continually hitting these higher grade intercepts, I think we can have a pretty good positive impact on this historic grade. So, having done our homework, so to speak, I think we're in a really good position to build this thing up and demonstrate that it's going to be a very, very attractive deposit for somebody other than ourselves to get it out of the ground. That's the mining part is the big boys. We're the farm team.
Right. Okay. So I guess that answers my question, and perhaps I might rather awkwardly phrase question of earlier. Of course, you want to demonstrate that there's economic advance here, but we see a lot of sort of small companies in an environment like this just adapt their strategy somewhat, and change it so that they can show that they can get into early production as a means of saying, look, it's not, this isn't a bottomless money pit of throwing it in. We're working how big this thing can be, and hope someone comes along and buys us. But as a means to think, well, if the market is not doing what we want, we can maybe retain some control. And you've got a gold project into production here. Just start small, get some revenue going. It's sort of anti-dilutory in that sense, and we feel that we can deliver that. You're saying actually no. Looking at the ore body as we see it and the grades that are coming through, we feel that we can demonstrate that this is a big enough project for someone with a big balance sheet to come in and maybe take this thing forward. Is that the way you want to play this?
That's our business model. I at the very beginning, I mentioned, we got this just up the road from where we're actually working on these two projects. There was a small gold mine that, a small junior company got into production. And if I learned anything through that exercise, as being the exploration geo right up to the chief geologist and managing miners and grade control and everything else, you have very little wiggle room when you get thrown a curveball, and you very, very quickly go through the capital that you raised thinking you were going to be a miner. So I think we just need to get these things, put a nice ribbon on it, and hopefully somebody comes in and recognizes the potential, and we'll get it out of the ground.
Okay, so obviously press release that recently, you said it grades at 1.4, 2.4, 0.6, etc. So the grades are there. You want to continue drilling to kind of demonstrate the scale, which is obviously fantastic. How long does it take? When we talk to sulfide guys, they put in one hole and sort of extrapolate, very, very large resources off the back of it. With the higher grade, I guess, veining type structures that you may see occasionally here, how do you piece together a resource quickly enough and speed this thing along?
Well, that's a really good question, because a lot of people are asking, are you are you going to get to be 43101 compliance? And the way I answer this is like, if you're going to delineate a gold project, for instance, here you're drilling things off at 12.5 meter centers, 15 meter centers. That's a lot of holes, and it's a lot of capital. And in base metals, and particularly in this type of situation where we have this very, very thick and very well mineralized gabbro host rock, which we think we know it continues along strike for to be determined just how far. Maybe you don't need to come in with really, really tight, detailed drilling, but if we, if I think sometimes people get a little bit spooked if you say we're going to come in and do the 43101 compliant resource calculation, because of how many drill holes and how much capital is required to do that. Who knows? We could find ourselves in a situation where maybe we block out one particular section of something that I hope is going to be of significant size to demonstrate continuity of grade. But I'm a little bit reluctant to say that we're going to, delineate something that's potentially 700 meters in strike, because it is going to take an awful lot of drilling. I just like to demonstrate that it's there, and then adjust accordingly.
Okay. So I guess the thing I need to believe is that nickel is in demand and we're not producing enough of it. I think I can tick. I'm ticking that box. Certainly in terms of a kind of bifurcated market or North American critical minerals context, for sure. With regards to what I need to believe from you, is like, do you feel so comfortable? You feel comfortable enough to raise capital in a market like this to be able to deliver, as just described, the data that you're going to need to tie this up in a pretty little bow, and pass the baton, as it were. And do you feel that the market's coming back for stories like yours for the higher grade nickel?
I like to think things are going to improve for us. This time last year we had a market cap 2 times where it is today. We touched a high of 35 cents, and we were on a good roll. And then the fall of 2023 was punishing not only to us but to most of our peers out there. And then we have been successful in raising capital. We've since becoming a public company, we've raised north of $20 million. So raising money, it's never easy, but we've had opportunity to raise funds, and there's people that still want to participate in the next go around. It's just a question of how much can you raise, and certainly at this level, you want to be very, very careful about the dilution and everything else. And at present, it's the Canada capital markets, the flow through shares. Yes, that's money. We need money, but boy, the attention span of some of the holders of the flow through shares seems to be pretty quick. So we've got to be careful where future raises and what hands that goes to. And we're currently working very, very hard with a few groups actually to soak up this last little bit that's coming at us, and hopefully move things north of where we currently are. And then that just creates a little better picture for us, and an opportunity to raise the money that we need. And that's, there is, the geology is a challenge, but as we said earlier, managing the capital market side of things is equally a big a challenge.
Oh, no, absolutely. And I think, managing the share, not just taking money blindly, but working out where the money's coming from, what type of money, and what that investor is likely to do is so important for you guys. I think the good news for you is nickel seems to be back up on the up again. General metals price movement is positive, and supply demand fundamentals continue to support what you're doing. So, for Ian, as a kind of first run through of the business, it's been really interesting. I'd love to have you back on, maybe get into the weeds a little bit more, a little bit more detail on the drilling, and what you're seeing, and sort of maybe even look at some of those diagrams that you guys have created. But it's not a bad time to be in nickel. Not a bad time to be in nickel.
No, I agree, and you can't be coming out of the starting block when the nickel market is rocking and rolling. So you got to keep the momentum going. You got to keep doing what you got to do.
Fantastic. Yeah, appreciate your time today. We'll speak to you soon. Cheers.
Thank you very much, Matthew. Bye-bye.